Hey, what's up, everybody? Matt Aguilar here from ComicBook.com's Comic Book Nation, and this is our bonus round. We got two bonus rounds today because today we're going to be talking about Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, the brand new series that will be hitting Disney Channel actually today, and then also Disney Plus will be hitting next week on the 15th. Just to, as you can see here, I got my handy little buddy. Because it felt pertinent. It felt right. I'm borrowing that from Ember to do this. So, sweetie, you will get it back as soon as this review is over. We're going to be talking about the show. I've got to see several episodes of the show so far. Haven't been able to watch the entire season yet, but I'm super excited because, as everyone who knows me knows, I am super into animation. I love things that are just joyful and bright. And this, as you can see with the wonderful trailer that is playing here, the series is just that in spades. It's so fun. Lunella is such a fun character. She's so intelligent. She's witty. But there's also this like really great grounded story with the rest of her family, and they play a really important part in the series. And it's one of those things, like most characters in a show and in animated shows as well have supporting cast and have family members. Typically the family is a part of the show, but not all the time does it feel necessarily like authentic or genuine. It just sometimes feels like, oh, those are just people in their world. There's like real heart at the core of their relationships. There's a lightheartedness that I remember from my family growing up, and so it's just really cool to see that visualized on screen. It just feels, I don't know, it feels like relevant, and it feels funny, and it's not trying too hard to be what it is. It's just being that. It's authentically itself, and so it's just super fun. Also, the animated style, I just love things that are vibrant, pop off the screen. This very much does. There's like such a cool thing, like Lunella's goggles, when she actually becomes Moon Girl, like her goggles are super expressive. So like as you can see, like you see what she's feeling through the goggles, and they're always kind of changing. So even though she's wearing, something that's covering her eyes, she's still as expressive. It's something that I just really enjoy. And also, Devil is such a great concept. He's a giant red T-Rex, and he doesn't speak throughout the entire show. He just makes, he makes animal noises. He sounds like a T-Rex. But it's so interesting how they were able to get, real like communication between him and Lunella. Like there's still like they understand each other in a way, and there's this kind of really, he's still, you can get the gist of what he is saying, even though he's just making sounds. And he's not actually having like full speech. So it's just really sweet. The action scenes are great, and the show embraces the kind of fantastical aspects of the Marvel universe. I mean, it's been said Lawrence Fishburne actually plays Beyonder in the show, and there's an amazing like musical number that happens, and they super lean into that, yet there's like real stakes in that episode. So again, like it knows what it wants to be. It knows it's fun, but it also has like really impactful action scenes, really like stylized stuff. And also, I will say one of the most unexpected things is actually the relationship between Lunella and her friends. And they kind of, aside from one who we'll get to in a second, they kind of start out as smaller players, but you start to kind of get to know them as the show goes on. And it's just it's just interesting to see like how even those small little parts start to develop and change over time, and you start to get to know them. So I have nothing but amazing things to say. I'm really excited. I mean, look, every joke doesn't fall right. Like there's still like there's moments where like certain comebacks or things like might fall a little flat. No show is going to get that 100% right. And for those like looking for the kind of Disney Plus MCU show where like, oh, hey, it tethers to here. I couldn't tell you if any of this really like is going to tie into that or not. Like that, there's no kind of, to me anyway, so far, it hasn't been like made clear that like there's any kind of greater importance to the MCU and how this reflects to any of that. So some people will just pass it on by because it doesn't have that connection. That would be unfortunate for them, because you're missing a really just like a show that is just beaming with personality, The dynamic between, as you're seeing right now, the dynamic between Lunella and Casey, who is her best friend, is like Casey in some ways steals the show almost every time she's on screen, and their back and forth is just delightful. So I have so much love for this show, and I think it's just creating a space all to itself, and it's awesome to see these two characters who honestly are fan favorites in the comics, but they haven't had the mainstream attention. So it's great to see them on the small screen and see them get some focus. So I hope you enjoyed that little trip through Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. Definitely check out the series when it hits both Disney Channel today and Disney Plus. And in the meantime, to get you all hyped for it even more, we have a interview that we're going to roll here, which deals with executive producer Steve Loader and supervising producer Rodney Clouden. And we got to talk to them all about the show, some of those moments I touched on here, as well as some of the amazing comic references that are in the sprinkled throughout the show. So definitely take a look at that, and we will roll into that here. Peace. Hey guys.
Good. How are you?
Doing well. Yeah,
right. Doing good. No, thank you so much for taking the time to talk. I appreciate it, and I am super psyched about this show. Number one, I just have to say, from just like a visual style and like aesthetic, this is one of the coolest looking shows. I just adore it. I guess just kind of starting from the beginning, how did this project come about? These two characters are fan favorites in the comics, but like they haven't received a lot of mainstream attention. So, how did this particular project kind of happen?
Sure. I mean, it really starts with Lawrence Fishburne in a comic book store. Lawrence is a big comic book fan, and so he was in his local comic store looking for new titles, and he came across Marvel's Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. He was very familiar with Moon Boy, growing up, and very familiar with Devil Dinosaur. So seeing that title, it just kind of drew his eye. He read it, fell in love with it, and he brought it to his producing partner, Helen Sugland at Cinema Gypsy, which is the production company that makes Blackish, Grownish, Mixedish, all those great
all
shows.
The issues.
All the issues. And said, we got to make a show out of this. This is an amazing opportunity. So calls were made to Disney, calls were made to Marvel, and everyone agreed that this is really this could be a really great animated series for kids.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things where, especially the concept is it's just so unique and different from anything else, even that Marvel makes, even for all the different characters and things that populate that world. For these two, what were the most important elements that you kind of wanted to capture for this duo in bringing them to animation, and really their first major, they've been featured in other things, but this is really their first major platform solo series?
Well, first off, you just have to think about, this is Marvel's first African-American teen girl superhero protagonist, so that's in itself is a big deal. So you have that on your shoulders, you're thinking about that, but then it's also, how do you present that to the world, and make it cool and unique and stand out from all the other things that have been made so far. So, a lot of it, you can owe to Spider-Verse as an inspiration, because that really just blew the doors off of any expectations. It really has opened up the possibilities of what you can do. It kind of allowed people to kind of stretch their creative juices and muscles to visually. And so we were like, how can we do that? Something like that, but, on a TV budget, and also make our own mark, our own statement, put our own flag in the sand, because we're not trying to copy, this definitely is something that inspired a lot of the look and the pushing the envelope of what we would expect from Disney, from television animation, sonically and visually.
Yeah, it's just, so you can definitely see the elements, like the infusions of Spider-Verse. You get a little bit of that flavor, but it does really feel like its own thing. And I feel like a big part of that is it feels like it has it feels like it has a soul, because the family, the supporting cast, like it really feels like a world, as opposed to like, hey, here's an adventure in this like really cool style. Because we see a lot of
Mhm.
visually impressive things that like capture your attention, but sometimes like right under the surface there's not much. And here it feels like you get to know the characters really quickly, for especially, I mean, I've had the pleasure of seeing, the first episode, and it's amazing how quickly you really kind of get a grasp on like not just Lunella, but who the people are around her family. Was that kind of something you wanted to put a spotlight on for her?
I think so. I think that a lot of attention was dedicated towards the writing in the early phases of development. I was really fortunate. I started in TV and I went to features for a little while and then came back to TV. And I learned a lot from being able to kind of jump, different types of, filmmaking. And what I learned in feature was a story sensibility of just kind of deep diving into the characters and really kind of figuring the characters out from the inside out. What's their wants, what's their needs, what do they really want, what do they really need? That kind of level of deep thinking. And so we were able to bring along Kate Condell and Jeff Howard, who I worked with at Disney Toons as feature writers, and we did a deep dive on the characters. And I remember one day we presented all the characters to Marvel and just kind of a basis, like this is who this character is. And we spent roughly about an hour on each character. Because that's how deep we went into figuring out who these characters were and how do they interact with each other. And it actually made scripting fairly easy in a way from that point on, because we had figured out so much stuff early that you can pretty much understand what Lunella's reaction would be, or what Adria, Lunella's mom, reaction would be in any given situation, because we had done the homework.
And you get that also. There's that, what you're saying is that you understand and you feel who Lunella is and what she represents, what she's all about, which is about the community, the LES is very important to her, which she learned from her mom, who instilled that feeling of community and empowerment, and she gets that from all aspects of her family, different family members. They learn from it. You get that multi-generational aspect of the parents, the grandparents living in the same house, and she gets to get those different point of views.
Yeah, and I truly love. There's what I actually adore is that like right now our daughter is 3 and she's moving through shows. So like right now it's all about Bluey, and I'm very excited because like Bluey's like turned out to be like, I watched that now. Like I'd watch that by myself if she wasn't around. If she wasn't around. It's so good. It's got so much stuff, and I love here. Like there's some laugh out loud lines. Like there's an old people line, which I love. It's like, oh, old people are so cute. It's just like, I know, like there's just so, I don't know, it's just so genuine in those moments. What goes into trying to kind of find that balance between, that kids are obviously going to watch the show, but you also, this is part of a grander, Marvel universe, and that fans of the character who are a little older or whatever, there's all kinds of ages. So you want to plant stuff in for older ages as well. How difficult is that to kind of find the balance?
Well, I think it's interesting because when you work in features, you're kind of told you need to make something called 4-quadrant, which is a technical term to basically say that it needs to appeal to parents and kids and basically to everyone. And it's a smart notion, because that's kind of what you want to make. If you don't want parents just dropping their kids in front of a screen and then walking away. You want them to be engaged in what they're watching as well, because we bring up a lot of strong thematical elements. Lunella is a 13-year-old, but each episode has the scope of relatability. Like this episode is about jealousy. This episode is about impatience. It's something we all feel. So you kind of want to make the show entertaining enough so that parents, want to watch it with their kids, and maybe, younger, like teenagers, or we really made it for everybody. Very similar to the Marvel MCU films. They're for everybody, really.
And it just happens, Lunella is a superhero, but she is also a 13-year-old girl. So you want to deal with that aspect of it, and we have that aspect of having it being a Marvel show. So you have the action and the comedy and all the relatability, the characters. And you also with those shows, when you're writing, you don't want to dumb down the writing for the viewers. The viewers are very smart. And to Steve's point about like different topics, which also can also encourage maybe some conversation between families and the kids and parents, whoever's watching the show.
Well, and you mentioned too, like relatability. And that's actually one thing I love about the first episode is that, in the midst of her kind of discovering, obviously a dinosaur and like those kind of bigger arcs, there's also this, one of the reasons, the main motivations is that she's just trying to help her family make ends meet. And there's this very relatable struggle that 90% of families out there feel of like trying to pay bills and trying to make sure a roof's over your head and all those things. And I love that that's baked in. I love that that's actually a part of it because it makes it feel like it has a soul.
Absolutely. Yeah, we really wanted to make sure that the show had a deep storytelling sensibility. So yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that.
Yeah, appreciate that.
No, absolutely. And also, you got a great cast. Diamond and is it Libe? Did I say that right?
Libe,
Are like phenomenal in their roles. There's such a great back and forth between those characters, but also just their takes. They're so personable and and animated, to not put in a pun, but
and they're real life good friends now. Which
are they really
awesome? Yeah. When we did one of the first records, we kind of wanted to do them together so they can kind of spark off each other, and they became good friends just from that record. And I think you're hearing that through all these episodes, this genuine friendship, which is really great.
And that's kind of, we try to do that as much as we can, but during pandemic, you had to do separate records sometimes, and then sometimes you had the same record at the same time, but Libe is living in New York. Diamond's living in LA. So we had to do a lot of that over Zoom. And we basically did, the whole production was done over Zoom for the last couple of years, So, it was really fun to watch them playing off each other. And there was definitely a vibe that you get that overlapping dialogue, and there's a certain naturalness to the conversation that you got from that.
Well, and too, I mean, the title is Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, and that relationship is obviously good, plays a big part in the show. And so far, it's just really a fun, kind of just delightful relationship. And was there ever a point where you were going to have, Devil Dinosaur talk at all? Did you always want to kind of do the way it's handled here? Because I enjoy it, and I think it adds something to it, and it's like that in the comics too. But I was just curious if that idea was ever floated.
Well, Fred Tatasciore, who plays Devil, is absolutely incredible. I mean, Fred can basically do anything, but when you're kind of looking for like an animal voice in the animation voiceover kind of community, there's a couple of key people you would go to, and Fred would be one of them. And so we brought Fred in, we told him about the character, we showed him the design and stuff like that. And we just pretty much assumed that it was just going to be various roars and grunts, and we could do like a whole library of these, and then we can just kind of pull in what we needed. But Fred really was invested in the character to the point where he wanted the scripts to be written out so that his dialogue wasn't just devil roars here. It was actually what he would actually be saying as if he was speaking English, so that he would read that and then do an interpretive version of grunts and roars that kind of approximated that emotion or that feeling. So yeah, it was really something special to kind of see a character like that, which is not a non-verbal character that we would normally kind of associate with a language, be able to create something that really had a lot of depth to it.
Yeah, it's all depth and personality, and it makes you really love that character and not just look at him as a pet, because he's not a pet, he's her partner, and he has a soul, like you said. So just having that aspect of Fred taking that part seriously enough to go that distance to create a sort of dialogue for Devil Dinosaur, and makes him more lovable. And he's not, because Devil Dinosaur, people may think scary, but when you watch the show, you'll learn to love Devil.
My daughter is going through a dinosaur phase right now, and the minute she sees him, it's over. I know it's over. We did get some Marvel references and ties and some fun kind of nods. You know, throughout the season, what can you tease about, you know, how much she kind of crosses over to that, you know, bigger world and those other characters? Do we see a lot of that? Is it more spotlighted on her and Devil Dinosaur throughout the first season, and you're kind of saving that stuff for moving forward? How are you kind of handling that?
Well, we're all massive fans of Marvel and the MCU. I mean, my Marvel connection goes back to my dad, who got Amazing Spider-Man from issue number 4 on. And you know, I was there for the John Byrne, Chris Claremont X-Men run. So it's in the DNA. And we're all huge fans of the MCU films. So the show it's kind of wonderfully walking a complementary line to the MCU movies, where we do have a little bit of MCU stuff kind of mixed in here and there. Colby Smulders is a voice on the show, and if you put 2 and 2 together, you can pretty much make that connection right there. Yeah, I think it was because the thing about Marvel is so great. Marvel, it speaks, Marvel really connects people, and the superhero story is an interesting story because they've applied this human element to it that is relatable and dynamic, and it's just engaging. So we wanted to kind of carry over that feeling, and there was opportunities for a little bit of kind of crossover. But one exciting aspect is you're going to see a lot of deep cuts. You're going to see a lot of Marvel characters that you wouldn't expect to see in any given show, because they're so
or even
deep.
know who they are.
Right. But we do, and
Yeah.
we were excited to kind of bring them to life. And yeah, I think you're going to be really surprised at some of the characters that pop up in the show.
And we got a lot of leeway to do our interpretation of it. There are some, you know, limitations, but we really got to make it our own for our show. So there'll be a lot of fun surprises like that.
Oh, I'm so excited because those are the characters I love, and I really don't have another shot of getting a cardiac on screen. So who knows? Maybe that's in the mix there. You know, I just
write that down. Cardiac.
Cardiac's amazing. You know, it's one of those things where we see a lot of like characters brought to the screen or brought to animation, and we've really over the last like 2 years seen a few that have, you know, Haley Steinfeld as Kate Bishop, or oh my god, Yelena, Florence Pugh as Yelena. Like some of these, you know, obviously Elizabeth Olsen as Scarlet Witch. Like we've seen certain characters kind of come into the movies or TV or animation and really just like, oh, that's like that might be my favorite version of the character. Like they really come to do. And I have to say, like this implementation of Linnella and Devil Dinosaur, I want to see this on like I want to see this in live action. Like I want this version. It's so fun, it's so cool, it just feels so fresh, and I hope we get to see more of this iteration of the series before, because I think you guys have done a wonderful job. So I know I have to let you guys go, but you know, thank you so much for taking the time, and all the best success on the series.
Thank you so
very
much. Yeah, we really
Thanks
appreciate
for having
it.
us.